The phone wasn't hers. That was the first mistake. The second was typing with a broken arm while morphine turned her thoughts into soup. The third was hitting send. Sylvia Robinson's left hand shook as she stared at the cracked screen. The burner phone she'd swiped from Thomas's jacket was smeared with her own blood, the numbers swimming in and out of focus. Her right arm hung useless in its fresh plaster cast, the weight of it pulling at her shattered bones with every shallow breath. The private medical wing was silent except for the distant hum of machines and the rhythmic drip of her IV. She had maybe an hour before Thomas came back to finish the paperwork. That was his phrase for it. Clinical. Like she was a ledger entry that needed correcting. She'd found the offshore account numbers 3 days ago. $88 million that Thomas had been skimming from the cartels, burying it in shell companies with her digital fingerprints all over them. He'd set her up perfectly. The forensic accountant who'd married the real estate mogul. Except Thomas wasn't a mogul. He was a cleaner, and she'd been his alibi, his fall guy, his useful idiot for 3 years. The realization had earned her a shattered radius and 2 fractured cervical vertebrae. Sylvia's vision blurred as she tried to remember the Treasury contact number she'd memorized months ago, just in case. Just in case Thomas ever became exactly what he'd become tonight. Her thumb moved across the blood-slick screen, each digit a small act of faith. She typed, "Audit complete. 88M moved. They're coming back tonight. Extract me." Her finger hovered over send. This was it. The moment she chose to live, or chose to wait for the needle, Thomas would slide into her IV at midnight. She pressed send. The phone buzzed immediately. Her heart lurched. Too fast. The Treasury never responded that fast. The screen flickered, then went black. When it lit up again, the text was in red. "I tracked this phone's GPS to Mercy West 10 minutes ago. You are holding my property. I am in the elevator. Unlock the door, Sylvia Robinson." Her breath stopped. Not a government agent. Not a friend. Someone who knew her full name. Someone who'd been tracking this phone. Someone who was already here. Down the hall, the elevator chimed. Sylvia's body went cold, but her mind sharpened into something she hadn't felt in years. Clarity. The predatory kind. She wasn't just a wife anymore. She wasn't just a victim with a broken arm and a death sentence. She was the only person alive who knew where $88 million was buried, and she'd just sent an invitation to someone who wanted it. The bathroom door where she'd locked herself rattled. Thomas's voice came through, honeyed and dangerous. "Sylvia, baby, open up. We need to talk about what happens next." She looked at the phone, at the red text, at the name of the man whose burner she'd stolen, Kim Sang-yeon. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore, from something else. Something that felt like the moment before a car crash, when time slows down and you can see exactly how the pieces are going to fall. The elevator doors opened somewhere close. Footsteps, multiple sets, professional, silent. Thomas heard them too. His voice changed, dropped the sweetness. "Who did you call?" Sylvia smiled, tasting blood on her lip. "The wrong person." The lights in the corridor cut out. Emergency strobes kicked in, bathing everything in red. And then the door exploded inward. "Welcome to Ruthless Romance Tales. And listen, you need to understand something right now. This isn't a rescue. This is a hostile takeover. If you've been riding with me, you know we don't do heroes here. We do predators who recognize each other in the dark. We do women who are too dangerous to save and too valuable to kill. And if you're new, you just walked into the kind of story that's going to live in your head rent-free for weeks. Hit that like button like it's the only lifeline you've got. Subscribe because you're already in too deep. Smash that notification bell, because what happens next will ruin you for every other romance. Now let's watch how a Korean mafia boss met the only woman who could destroy him. Thomas stumbled backward as 3 figures in tactical gear moved through the doorway like smoke. But Sylvia wasn't looking at them. She was looking at the man who walked in last. Kim Sang-yeon didn't rush. He moved like someone who'd already won, who knew the outcome before the game started. Tall, lean, wearing a charcoal suit that looked like it had been tailored on his body. His face was all sharp angles and controlled stillness, the kind of face that gave nothing away. But his eyes, dark, calculating, and fixed on Thomas with the interest of a man examining an insect. "You stole $88 million from the Sinaloa cartel," Sang-yeon said, his voice low and accented. "But you broke the woman who knows where you hid it. That's bad mathematics. Thomas's face went white, then red. Who the hell are you? Sang-yeon didn't answer him. He turned to Sylvia, and for the first time, his expression shifted. Not warmth, not concern, interest. The way someone looks at a puzzle they've been trying to solve for years. Mrs. Robinson, he said. You stole my phone. That was brave or foolish. I haven't decided which. Sylvia's throat was dry, but she met his gaze. I was aiming for desperate. Something flickered in his eyes. Almost amusement. Desperation makes people honest. I appreciate honesty. He glanced at the cast on her arm, then back at her face. Can you walk? Can you get me out of here? I can do many things. He stepped closer, and she caught the scent of rain and something darker. Gunpowder, maybe. Or just danger. The question is whether you're worth the war I'm about to start. Thomas lunged. One of Sang-yeon's men caught him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. The sound was bone on tile, brutal and final. Sang-yeon didn't even glance at Thomas. He was still looking at Sylvia. The encryption key for those accounts. Is it on the phone? She shook her head slowly. The phone is empty. His jaw tightened. Then where is it? Sylvia lifted her casted arm. In the plaster. I had the nurse embed a microdrive before it hardened. Biometric lock. Password protected. You cut the cast. You destroy it. You kill me. You lose the password. She paused, letting him process. You want the money? You need me breathing. Silence. The kind that hums. Then Sang-yeon smiled. It was a thin, dangerous thing. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. He turned to his men. Secure her. We're leaving. Thomas screamed something, but it was lost in the sound of a suppressed gunshot. Or maybe it was the fire alarm. Sylvia couldn't tell anymore. Everything was moving too fast and too slow at the same time. Sang-yeon held out his hand. She stared at it. This was the moment, the choice. Take his hand and step into a world that would swallow her whole, or stay here and die in a hospital room with her name already on someone's hit list. She took his hand. His grip was firm, steady, and as he pulled her to her feet, he leaned in close enough that she could feel his breath against her ear. I didn't come for you, Sylvia Robinson. I came for the phone you stole. You just happened to be attached to the data I need. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something else. Something that burned hotter than fear. Then I guess we're both stuck with each other, she whispered back. He pulled away, and she saw it. Just for a second. The shift in his expression. He'd expected a victim. He'd found an equal. They walked out of that hospital room together. Through the smoke and the sirens and the bodies of men who'd underestimated both of them. And as the night air hit her face, Sylvia realized something that should have scared her but didn't. She'd just traded one cage for another. But this time, she was holding the key. The armored vehicle smelled like leather and rain. Sylvia pressed her back against the seat, her casted arm cradled against her ribs, watching the city lights blur past the tinted windows. Two of Sang-yeon's men sat in front, silent as statues. He sat across from her, fingers steepled, studying her the way someone studies a contract before signing. You're bleeding through your bandages, he said finally. Sylvia glanced down. He was right. Red was seeping through the gauze at her wrist. Thomas liked to be thorough. Thomas is a dead man. He just doesn't know it yet. Sang-yeon leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The cartels will find him before sunrise. When they do, they'll assume he moved the money. They'll spend weeks pulling him apart to find out where. By the time they realize he doesn't know, there won't be enough left of him to bury. And me? You. His eyes were black in the dim light. You're the variable I didn't account for. 3 years ago, I tried to move money through a shell company in Chicago. Someone flagged the transactions. I lost $2 million in 6 months of groundwork. I tracked the audit back to a forensic accountant named Sylvia Robinson. I was impressed. Angry, but impressed. Sylvia's pulse quickened. You were going to kill me. I was going to recruit you. But you married Thomas Herrera before I could make contact. I thought that was the end of it. A waste of talent. He tilted his head. Then tonight, my phone sends me an emergency GPS alert. I track it to Mercy West Hospital, and I find you holding it, with $88 million in your broken arm. I didn't know it was your phone. No. But you knew enough to steal one from a man who was about to kill you. That's instinct, the kind you can't teach. He sat back. Tell me about the drive. Sylvia's throat felt tight. She'd been running on adrenaline for hours, but now, in the quiet of the car, everything was catching up. The pain, the fear, the realization that she'd jumped from one predator's grip into another's. It's a 2 terabyte solid-state drive, encrypted with military-grade software. It contains every transaction Thomas made for the cartels over the last 5 years. Wire transfers, cryptocurrency wallets, property deeds, shell company registrations, everything. And the 88 million? Spread across 14 accounts, different banks, different countries. He was going to let the cartels kill me, then use my death to cover his tracks. Pin it all on the dead wife who had access to everything. Sang Yon's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. A coiling. Like a snake, deciding whether to strike. You built this trap for him. I found out what he was doing 2 weeks ago. I knew he'd kill me the moment he realized I knew. So I moved the evidence somewhere he couldn't reach it. Somewhere he couldn't destroy without destroying me. Smart. Desperate but smart. He pulled out a slim phone, typed something, then looked back at her. Here's the situation, Mrs. Robinson. Thomas stole from the cartels. The cartels will want their money back. When they can't find it, they'll come looking for anyone connected to him. That includes you. I know. Do you? He leaned forward again, and this time there was no warmth in his voice. They'll assume you helped him. They'll take you somewhere quiet and spend days making you scream. And when you finally break, when you give them everything, they'll kill you anyway. Just to make a point. Sylvia met his eyes. Then I guess it's good I'm not planning on letting them find me. They will find you. Unless you disappear completely. New name, new face, new continent. Is that what you want? She thought about it. Running, hiding, spending the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, waiting for the knife or the bullet or the needle. Her whole life, she'd been careful. She'd played by the rules. She'd married a man who seemed safe, who seemed legitimate, who promised her stability, and it had nearly killed her. No, she said quietly. I'm done running. Sang-Yeon's eyes narrowed. Then what do you want? I want them dead. The cartels. Thomas. Everyone who thought I was just collateral damage. Her voice was steady now. Cold. I want to burn it all down. Silence filled the car, the kind that presses against your eardrums. Then Sang-Yeon smiled. It was the most terrifying thing she'd seen all night. Then let's discuss terms. The building rose out of the Chicago skyline like a blade. 40 stories of glass and steel, the kind of structure that didn't just exist in a city, it dominated it. Sylvia stepped out of the vehicle into underground parking that smelled of concrete and oil. Everything echoed down here. Footsteps, breathing, the click of the elevator doors opening. Sang-Yeon guided her inside with a hand that didn't quite touch her back. Professional distance. She noticed things about him now that the adrenaline was fading. The way he moved with absolute economy, no wasted motion, the silver ring on his right hand, engraved with characters she couldn't read, the small scar above his left eyebrow, white against his skin. Where are we? She asked as the elevator climbed. Somewhere Thomas never knew existed. I own this building through a trust registered in Singapore. On paper, it belongs to a pharmaceutical company that doesn't do business in the United States. The elevator opened directly into a space that made Sylvia's breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around 3 sides, showcasing the city sprawled below like a circuit board. The interior was all clean lines and dark wood, low furniture and art that probably belonged in museums. But it wasn't the wealth that struck her. It was the control. Every piece of furniture placed with intention. Every surface clear. Nothing accidental. Nothing left to chance. A woman appeared from a doorway. Older, Korean, carrying a medical bag. She spoke rapidly in Korean. Sang-Yeon answered in the same language, then switched to English. Dr. Yoon will examine your injuries. She's discreet. I'm fine. You're bleeding and concussed. Sit down. It wasn't a request. Sylvia lowered herself onto a chair near the window, and Dr. Yoon began unwrapping the gauze at her wrist. The older woman's touch was gentle but efficient, her face betraying nothing as she examined the defensive wounds, the bruising that flowered up Sylvia's forearm in shades of purple and green. Sang-Yeon stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking Korean again. Sylvia caught fragments. Names. Numbers. The word that sounded like containment. He was already moving pieces on a board she couldn't see. Dr. Yoon finished rebandaging her arm and checked her pupils, her neck, the tender spot where Thomas had slammed her head against the bathroom sink. When she was done, she said something to Sang-yeon and left as quietly as she'd come. "You have a grade 2 concussion," Sang-yeon said, pocketing his phone. "The fractures in your arm are clean but will take 8 weeks to heal fully. Your neck is stable but needs to be monitored." He moved to a cabinet, poured 2 glasses of something amber. "You should be in a hospital. Hospitals have records. Records have names. Smart." He handed her a glass. "Drink. It'll help with the pain." Sylvia took it, sniffed. Whiskey, the expensive kind that burned smooth. She drank, and warmth spread through her chest. "You said terms." Sang-yeon sat across from her, the city glittering behind him like a crown. "I need access to that drive. I need the account numbers, the routing information, the passwords, everything Thomas stole. And in exchange, protection, resources, a way to make the people hunting you disappear." He swirled his glass. "But understand this, Mrs. Robinson. The moment you give me that information, you become an asset. Assets are protected only as long as they remain valuable. You're saying if I give you what you want, you'll throw me away when you're done. I'm saying the world we're in doesn't make promises. It makes transactions." His eyes held hers. "You want revenge? I can give you that. You want safety? That doesn't exist. Not for people like us. What I can give you is power. Enough power that when they come for you, and they will come, you'll be ready." Sylvia set down her glass. Her head throbbed, and her arm felt like it was filled with broken glass. But her mind was crystallizing around a single truth. She'd spent 3 years being careful, being small, trying to fit into Thomas's world without making waves, and it had nearly destroyed her. "I don't want protection," she said. "I want partnership." Sang-yeon's expression shifted. Surprise, maybe, or respect. Partnership implies equal standing. "I have $88 million of cartel money embedded in my arm. I have 5 years of evidence that could dismantle a dozen criminal organizations. I have the audit trail that proves Thomas was skimming, and I know how to make money disappear so completely that even you couldn't find it." She leaned forward, ignoring the pain. "You need me as much as I need you. So let's stop pretending this is a rescue. This is a merger." Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. Then Sang-yeon laughed. It was low, genuine, the first real sound she'd heard from him. "Thomas really had no idea who he married, did he?" "No, he didn't." "All right, Mrs. Robinson. Partnership." He raised his glass. 50-50 split on the cartel money. Full access to my network. And when this is over, you walk away clean. Those are my terms. Sylvia raised her glass to meet his. "Agreed, on one condition, which is, I'm the one who kills Thomas." Their glasses clinked in the silence. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Sylvia woke to sunlight cutting across unfamiliar walls. For 3 seconds, she forgot where she was. Then the pain in her arm reminded her. Everything reminded her. She was in a bedroom that felt more like a luxury hotel than someone's home. White linens, blackout curtains now pulled back. A view of Lake Michigan stretching to the horizon. Her clothes from last night were gone, replaced by soft cotton pajamas folded on a chair. Someone had undressed her while she slept. The thought should have violated her, but exhaustion had pulled her under too deep for fear. Her phone, Thomas's phone. Sang-yeon's phone sat on the nightstand, fully charged. She reached for it with her good hand and found a text waiting. "Dr. Yoon will check on you at 9. Don't leave the residence. We have a problem." It was 7:45. Sylvia pushed herself upright, her body screaming in protest. The bedroom door was unlocked. She moved into a hallway lined with abstract paintings, following the smell of coffee. The kitchen was all steel and stone, industrial and pristine. Sang-yeon stood at the counter in dark slacks, and a white shirt rolled to his elbows, reading something on a tablet. He looked up when she entered. "You should be resting. You said we have a problem." He studied her for a moment, then poured coffee into a second cup and slid it across the counter. "Thomas didn't run. He went to the cartels first." Sylvia's stomach dropped. "What?" "My contact in the Sinaloa organization sent this an hour ago." He turned the tablet toward her. It was a photograph, grainy but clear enough. Thomas, alive, sitting across from 3 men in what looked like a warehouse. "He's claiming you stole the money." that you've been skimming for months, and when he confronted you, you tried to kill him. He's offering to help them find you in exchange for protection." The coffee turned bitter in her mouth. They believe him? They're listening. Thomas has been their cleaner for 5 years. He's built credibility. You're the unknown variable, the wife who suddenly has access to everything. Sang-yeon took the tablet back. He's smart. He's flipping the narrative before you can. Then we expose him, show them the evidence. With what? The drive is still locked in your cast. By the time we extract it and decrypt the files, Thomas will have already poisoned the well. The cartels don't wait for trials, Mrs. Robinson. They act on suspicion. Sylvia set down her cup before her shaking hand could betray her. She'd known Thomas was a coward, but this was something else. This was tactical. He wasn't just saving himself, he was making sure she couldn't fight back. How long do we have? 48 hours, maybe less. The cartels are sending someone to verify Thomas's story. They'll want to see bank records, communication logs, anything that proves you're the thief. He moved around the counter, closer. If Thomas produces evidence first, they'll put a bounty on you that every criminal organization in North America will chase. He can't produce evidence. I buried everything too deep. Can you prove that? Can you prove you didn't take the money before they decide you did? Sang-yeon's voice was calm, but there was an edge beneath it. Right now, it's your word against his, and he's the one sitting at their table. Sylvia's mind raced through the possibilities, the variables, the gaps in Thomas's story. She'd spent 3 years learning how he operated, how he thought, where he kept his secrets. There had to be something. Some hole in his narrative she could exploit. The burner phone, she said suddenly. The one I used to text you. How many people know Thomas had it? Sang-yeon's eyes sharpened. Explain. Thomas kept that phone for his real business. The business the cartels don't know about. He was playing both sides, cleaning for them while skimming for himself. If I can prove that phone exists, if I can show them he was operating outside their knowledge, it destroys his credibility. The phone is wiped. I checked it last night. No call logs, no message history. He's careful. He's careful with the obvious things. But phones leave traces even after they're wiped. Cell tower pings, metadata, carrier records. Sylvia felt the familiar rhythm of an audit clicking into place in her mind. If we can pull his location data from the carrier, we can prove he was places the cartels never sent him, meeting people they never authorized, moving money through channels they never approved. Sang-yeon was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he reached for his own phone. I have someone who can access carrier databases. It'll take time. How much time? 24 hours, if we're lucky. And if we're not? He met her eyes. Then Thomas wins, and you become the most wanted woman in Chicago. The words settled between them like stones. Sylvia looked out at the lake, at the city waking up beyond the glass. Somewhere out there, Thomas was building a case against her. Somewhere out there, the cartels were deciding whether she deserved to die. And somewhere in this apartment, she was standing next to a man who could either save her or sell her, depending on which option served him better. There's something else, she said quietly. Something I didn't tell you last night. Sang-yeon waited. The 88 million isn't the only thing on that drive. There's a file, a list of every offshore account Thomas used, every shell company, every fake identity. But there's also a list of his clients. Not just the cartels, politicians, judges, federal agents, people who paid him to make problems disappear. She turned to face him. If that list gets out, it doesn't just destroy Thomas. It brings down half of Chicago's power structure. You're saying you have leverage. I'm saying I have a nuclear option. And if Thomas forces my hand, I'll use it. Dr. Yoon arrived at 9 sharp, examined Sylvia's arm with the same quiet efficiency, and left without asking questions. That was when Sang-yeon's phone rang. He listened, his face hardening. When he hung up, he stood motionless for 3 seconds. Sylvia had learned to read those silences. They meant something had shifted. The cartels moved up their timeline. They're sending someone tonight. Tonight? You said we had 48 hours. Thomas gave them something. I don't know what, but it was enough to accelerate their decision. He crossed to a laptop on the dining table, typed rapidly. My carrier contact won't have the phone records until tomorrow morning. We're out of time. Sylvia's mind churned through options, discarding each one as quickly as it formed. They couldn't run. The cartels had networks everywhere. They couldn't hide. Thomas knew too many of her patterns. They couldn't fight, not without proof. Who are they sending? A woman named Elena Voss. She's their auditor. The cartels use her to verify financial discrepancies before they make terminal decisions. Sang-yeon looked up from the screen. She's thorough. If Thomas has planted evidence, she'll find it. If he hasn't, she'll know he's lying. But either way, she'll want to interview you. Then let her. You don't understand. Elena doesn't conduct interviews. She conducts interrogations. And she's very good at determining who's telling the truth. I am telling the truth. Truth is subjective when someone's already decided you're guilty. He closed the laptop. There's another option. Sylvia waited. We give her Thomas instead. What do you mean? Elena is arriving at O'Hare at 7 tonight. She's expecting to meet with Thomas first, then review his evidence against you. What if she finds something else? Something that proves Thomas has been lying to the cartels for years? The phone records won't be ready. No, but you said there's a list on that drive. Names, accounts, transactions. What if we give Elena access to part of that list? Just enough to show that Thomas has been playing both sides. Sylvia's pulse quickened. We'd have to extract the drive from my cast. Yes, that means cutting it open. You said that could destroy the drive. It could. Or it could give us exactly what we need to survive the next 12 hours. Sang-yeon moved closer, his voice dropping. This is the choice, Mrs. Robinson. We take the risk now, or we wait for Elena to take us both apart. What's it going to be? Sylvia looked at her casted arm. 8 weeks to heal, Dr. Yoon had said. 8 weeks of carrying evidence that could either save her life or end it. She thought about Thomas, sitting in that warehouse, spinning lies with the confidence of someone who'd never been caught. She thought about the cartels, about Elena Voss and her interrogations, about the 48 hours that had just collapsed into 12. Do it, she said. Cut it open. An hour later, Sylvia sat in Sang-yeon's study while Dr. Yoon prepared a sterile field on the desk. The older woman had returned with a medical kit and a portable X-ray machine, asking no questions when Sang-yeon explained what they needed. The X-ray image appeared on a screen. The bones of Sylvia's forearm, the metal pins, and there a small rectangular shadow embedded in the plaster near her wrist. It's close to the surface, doctor, Yoon said in accented English. I can remove a section of the cast without damaging the internal structure. But you'll need a new cast immediately after, and the arm must stay immobilized. How long will it take? Sang-yeon asked. 20 minutes to remove the section, 5 minutes to extract the device, another 30 to recast. Sylvia's throat was dry. Will it hurt? Dr. Yoon met her eyes with something that might have been sympathy. Yes. They gave her a leather strap to bite down on. Dr. Yoon worked with the oscillating saw, the high-pitched whine filling the room as she carved a precise window in the plaster. Sylvia tasted blood where her teeth cut into the leather, felt sweat soak through her shirt. Sang-yeon stood beside her, not touching, but close enough that she could focus on his presence instead of the pain. When Dr. Yoon finally lifted away a section of plaster, Sylvia saw it. A micro-drive no bigger than her thumbnail, sealed in a small waterproof case, nestled against the fiberglass like a secret the cast had been keeping. Dr. Yoon extracted it with tweezers, placed it in Sang-yeon's palm. He held it up to the light. This is what $88 million looks like. That's what survival looks like, Sylvia corrected, her voice hoarse. Dr. Yoon began preparing the recasting material. Sang-yeon moved to his laptop, inserted the drive into a reader. The screen filled with folders, hundreds of them. Years of Thomas's work, compressed into ones and zeros. How long to decrypt? Sylvia asked. The biometric lock requires your thumbprint. The password? Sylvia recited a 16-digit alphanumeric code she'd memorized and never written down. Sang-yeon entered it. The folders unlocked. He opened the first file. Bank statements appeared, transaction logs, wire transfer confirmations. Then he opened the second file, the one Sylvia had labeled insurance. Names scrolled down the screen. Dates, dollar amounts, services rendered. Sang-yeon went very still. 3 federal judges, he said quietly. 2 state senators, a deputy police commissioner, and someone in the FBI's financial crimes division. He looked at Sylvia. Thomas wasn't just cleaning money, he was buying protection. Now you see why he's so confident. Half the people who could investigate him are on his payroll. And if Elena sees this list, She'll know Thomas has been operating an entirely separate enterprise, one the cartels never authorized and never benefited from. It proves he's been skimming more than just money, he's been skimming power. Sang-yeon's expression was unreadable, but Sylvia saw it. The calculation, the reassessment. She wasn't just an asset anymore. She was holding a weapon that could reshape Chicago's entire criminal infrastructure. "We need to be very careful how we use this," he said. "No." Sylvia's voice was steady despite the pain radiating through her arm. "We need to be very brutal how we use this. Elena arrives in 6 hours. By the time she lands, I want her to know exactly who Thomas Herrera really is." Elena Voss arrived at midnight, not 7. That was the first sign something had changed. Sylvia stood by the window, her arm in a fresh cast, watching the city breathe below. Sang-yeon had been on the phone for the last 2 hours, his voice switching between English and Korean, his posture growing more rigid with each call. When he finally hung up, his face was carved from stone. "Thomas is dead." The words didn't register at first. Sylvia turned slowly. "What?" "The cartels found him an hour ago. In his car, parked outside a storage unit in Gary, Indiana. Single gunshot to the back of the head. Professional." Sylvia's legs felt weak. She sat down on the arm of the sofa, her good hand gripping the fabric. "The cartels killed him." "No." Sang-yeon crossed to the bar, poured whiskey into 2 glasses. "The cartels didn't order it. Elena didn't order it. Which means someone else wanted Thomas dead before Elena could question him. Who? That's what Elena wants to know. She's landing at O'Hare in 20 minutes. And she's coming here." Sylvia's pulse hammered. "Here? How does she know about this place?" "I told her." Sang-yeon handed her a glass. "When Thomas turned up dead, Elena's first assumption was that I killed him to protect you. I had to prove otherwise. So I invited her here to review the evidence herself. You invited a cartel auditor into your home. I invited the only person who can clear both our names." He sat across from her. "Thomas's death changes everything. Whoever killed him did it to silence him. That means someone else knows about the money, knows about the list, and wants to make sure neither of us can use it." Sylvia's mind raced. One of the names on Thomas's client list, someone who paid him for protection and now realizes that protection is compromised. That's my theory. But without Thomas alive to verify the files, Elena will assume we fabricated them. We need more than the drive. We need proof that someone else had motive to kill Thomas tonight. "The storage unit. You said he was found outside a storage unit." "Yes, in Gary." Thomas kept physical records. He didn't trust digital entirely. Always said hard copies were insurance. If he was at a storage unit, he was either hiding something or retrieving something. Sang-yeon's eyes sharpened. "You think he kept backup evidence there?" "I think he kept something he didn't want the cartels to find. Something he was planning to use as leverage if they turned on him." Sylvia stood, ignoring the throb in her arm. "We need to get there before Elena does. She's arriving in 20 minutes. Then we have 20 minutes. They took a different vehicle this time. Something fast and dark that ate up the highway between Chicago and Gary like it was hungry." Sang-yeon drove in silence while Sylvia worked through the variables. Thomas was paranoid, meticulous. He wouldn't store evidence in his own name. He'd use a shell identity, something clean, something untraceable. Unless he used my name, she said suddenly. Sang-yeon glanced at her. "What?" "For the storage unit. He'd register it under my name. That way if anyone found it, the evidence would point to me, not him. It's what he did with the offshore accounts, the shell companies. Everything was in my name." "Do you know which facility?" "No. But there are only 3 storage places in Gary that rent climate-controlled units. Thomas would need climate control for paper records. We check all 3. Sang-yeon's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He pulled out his phone, made a call. 2 minutes later, he had addresses. The first facility was closed, dark. The second was crawling with police, squad cars, crime scene tape, the works, Thomas's murder scene. They drove past without slowing. The third facility was in an industrial area that smelled like rust and old oil. The gate was open, too open. Someone had cut the chain. Sang-yeon parked 2 blocks away. They approached on foot, Sylvia struggling to keep pace with her injured arm and exhausted body. The facility was rows of identical orange doors, each marked with a number. Unit 247 was at the back, and the door was already rolled up. A man stood inside, his back to them, rifling through boxes with a flashlight. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing gloves. Professional. Sang-yeon moved like water, silent and fluid. He had a gun in his hand. Sylvia hadn't even seen him draw it. But before he could get close, the man turned. Recognition flashed across his face. Not fear. Surprise. Sang-yeon. The man's voice was American, Midwest accent. Didn't expect to see you here. Marcus. Sang-yeon's gun didn't waver. Step away from the boxes. The man Marcus raised his hand slowly, the flashlight dangling from his wrist. This isn't what it looks like. It looks like you killed Thomas Herrera and came here to destroy evidence. I didn't kill Thomas. But yeah, I'm here to clean up his mess. Same as you. Marcus's eyes shifted to Sylvia. You must be the wife. The accountant. Thomas talked about you. Said you were smarter than you looked. Sylvia stepped forward, even though every instinct screamed at her to stay back. Who are you? FBI. Financial Crimes Division. I've been investigating Thomas for 8 months. He lowered his hand slowly. And before you ask, yes, I'm on that list. The one Thomas kept as insurance. He's been blackmailing me for 6 months. Sang-yeon's expression was ice. Then you had motive. I had motive. I also have an alibi. I was in a meeting with my supervisor when Thomas died. 12 witnesses. Marcus pulled a badge from his jacket, held it up. I'm here because Thomas called me 3 hours before he died. Said if anything happened to him, I should check this unit. Said there was evidence here that would protect us both. Protect you from what? Sylvia asked. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he stepped aside, shining his flashlight into the boxes. They were filled with photographs. Hundreds of them. Surveillance photos. People meeting in restaurants, parking garages, hotels. Dates and times stamped in the corners. Thomas wasn't just a cleaner, Marcus said quietly. He was an intelligence broker. He collected dirt on everyone he worked with. The cartels, the politicians, the cops, even his own clients. And someone just paid a lot of money to make sure this evidence disappeared. Sylvia's hands went numb. Who? That's what I'm trying to figure out. But whoever it is, they're cleaning house. Thomas was just the first domino. Marcus looked at Sang-yeon. How long until Elena gets here? She's probably already at my building. Then we're out of time. Because if she thinks you killed Thomas, you're both dead by morning. They loaded 3 boxes into Sang-yeon's vehicle. Marcus took 2 more in his own car, promising to meet them at a secondary location. Sylvia didn't trust him, but Sang-yeon seemed to calculate the FBI agent was more valuable alive than dead. For now, the drive back to Chicago was silent, except for the hum of tires on asphalt. Sylvia's arm throbbed in rhythm with her heartbeat, and exhaustion pulled at her like an undertow, but her mind wouldn't stop working, turning over the pieces, trying to see the shape of the conspiracy before it swallowed them whole. Thomas called Marcus 3 hours before he died, she said finally. That means he knew someone was coming for him, or he suspected. Sang-yeon's eyes never left the road. Thomas was paranoid. He probably had contingencies for every scenario. But why Marcus? If Thomas was blackmailing him, why trust him with the evidence? Because Marcus had the most to lose. If Thomas died and the evidence went public, Marcus's career ends. His life ends. Thomas knew that would motivate him to protect the storage unit. Sylvia turned that over. It made sense. Cold, calculated sense. So Thomas dies, and the evidence is supposed to stay hidden. But someone else knew about the storage unit. Someone who sent that shooter. Or someone who told the shooter where to find Thomas. Sang-yeon's voice was measured. The question is, who knew enough about Thomas's operations to predict his movements? Someone on the list. Someone with access to law enforcement resources. Sylvia's stomach turned. Someone who could track Thomas, kill him, and make it look like cartel business. They pulled into the underground garage. The elevator ride up felt like descending into deep water, pressure building in Sylvia's chest. When the doors opened into Sang-yeon's residence, a woman was waiting. Elena Voss was not what Sylvia expected. She was small, almost delicate, with silver hair pulled into a neat bun and glasses perched on a fine nose. She wore a cream suit and held a leather portfolio. She looked like someone's elegant grandmother, not a cartel enforcer. But her eyes were winter cold. Mr. Kim, Mrs. Robinson. Her voice was accented, European. We have much to discuss. Sang-yeon set the boxes on the dining table. Thomas Herrera is dead. We didn't kill him, and we have evidence that proves who did. Elena's expression didn't change. She opened her portfolio, removed a photograph, and placed it on the table. It was Thomas's body, slumped in his car, the bullet wound visible. This was taken 2 hours ago. The weapon used was a Glock 19 9mm, suppressed. The shooter left no casings, no prints, no witnesses. Very professional. We know, Sylvia said. We were at the storage unit. Elena's eyes cut to her. Storage unit? The one Thomas rented in Gary. Under my name. The one filled with surveillance photographs and blackmail material spanning 5 years. Sylvia moved to the boxes, pulled out a stack of photos. Thomas wasn't just cleaning money for the cartels. He was collecting intelligence on everyone he worked with, and someone wanted that intelligence destroyed. Elena studied the photographs, her face unreadable. She picked up one image. A federal judge accepting an envelope from Thomas in an underground parking structure. Another, a state senator leaving what was clearly a brothel. A third, a police deputy commissioner meeting with known cartel enforcers. This is comprehensive, Elena said quietly. But it doesn't prove who killed Thomas. No. But it proves why someone wanted him dead. Sang-yeon pulled out his laptop, opened the drive files. Mrs. Robinson recovered these from Thomas's private records. They contain financial transactions, communications, and client lists. Cross-reference the names in these files with the people in those photographs. Elena leaned over the screen. Her fingers moved across the trackpad, opening folders, scanning documents. Minutes passed. The silence was absolute. Then she stopped on one file. A wire transfer record. $50,000. Paid from an account registered to a Delaware LLC. The transfer date was 3 days ago. The recipient was a known contract killer. Who owns the LLC? Sylvia asked. Elena's voice was flat. According to the registration documents. You do, Mrs. Robinson. The room tilted. Sylvia grabbed the edge of the table. That's not possible. The LLC was registered 8 months ago using your social security number, your driver's license, and your signature. The payment was authorized using your personal email account. Elena turned the laptop toward her. From where I'm standing, you hired someone to kill Thomas Herrera, and now you're trying to frame someone else. That's a fabrication. Thomas is dead. You're alive, and you're in possession of evidence that could destroy dozens of powerful people. Elena closed the laptop. The cartels want their money back, Mrs. Robinson. And they want the person responsible for this chaos. Right now, all the evidence points to you. Sylvia's vision narrowed. Everything Thomas had done, the accounts in her name, the shell companies, the fabricated transactions, it was all building to this moment. He'd constructed the perfect frame, knowing that even in death, he could destroy her. Sang-yeon's hand found hers beneath the table. His grip was steady, grounding. The email account, he said. Can you trace the IP address of the computer that sent the authorization? Elena studied him. Why? Because Mrs. Robinson was in a hospital with a broken arm and a concussion when that payment was sent. If the IP address shows the email came from somewhere she wasn't, it proves the account was compromised. Elena reopened the laptop, fingers flying across keys. She pulled up the email metadata, traced the originating IP address. Then her expression changed. The email was sent from Thomas Herrera's home computer, she said slowly. 3 days ago, at 2:47 a.m., 3 days ago, I was locked in a private medical wing, Sylvia said, her voice shaking. Dr. Yoon can verify. Thomas broke my arm and had me sedated. There's no way I sent that email. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, made a call, spoke rapidly in Spanish. When she hung up, her face was still unreadable, but something had shifted. The cartels will want verification, she said. Medical records, witness statements, surveillance footage if it exists. But if what you're saying is true, then Thomas Herrera tried to frame you for his own murder before he died. Which means he knew someone was coming for him, Sang-yeon said. And he tried to take Mrs. Robinson down with him. Or, Elena said quietly, he was trying to protect someone else. Someone who paid him to create a false trail, then eliminated him when the trail led too close to the truth. Sylvia's breath caught. The client list. Someone on that list knew Thomas was compromised, so they paid him to frame me, then killed him to tie up loose ends. A client who has the resources to hire a professional killer, access law enforcement databases, and fabricate digital evidence. Elena's eyes moved between them. Someone with more to lose than anyone else on that list. The apartment's intercom buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. Emergency signal. Sang-yeon moved to the panel, checked the camera feed. His face went rigid. We have company. 6 vehicles. Federal plates. Marcus's voice came through the intercom. Strained. Sang-yeon, don't engage. They have warrants. For both of you. Sang-yeon killed the intercom. His movements were precise, controlled, but Sylvia saw the calculation behind his eyes. Fight or flight. The math of survival. How long? Elena asked, already moving toward the boxes of photographs. 3 minutes before they breached the lobby. 5 before they reached this floor. Sang-yeon pulled open a panel in the wall, revealing a safe. His hands worked the combination. The warrants will be for harboring a fugitive and obstruction. They'll seize everything. Then we give them nothing. Elena grabbed the photographs, started feeding them into a paper shredder in rapid succession. The machine whined, consuming evidence. Mrs. Robinson, the drive. Where is it? Sylvia's mind blanked for a second. Still in the laptop. Get it out. Now. Sylvia ejected the drive with shaking hands, held the tiny piece of metal and silicon that had become the center of a war she hadn't asked to fight. Sang-yeon emerged from the safe with 3 passports and a black carrying case. There's a service elevator behind the wine storage, he said. It goes to a sub-basement parking level. From there, we have 7 minutes to clear a 3-block radius before the perimeter locks down. We? Sylvia looked at Elena. You're coming with us? The cartels sent me to find the truth. That investigation isn't finished. Elena's voice was clinical, but her hands moved with urgency. And if federal agents are executing warrants based on fabricated evidence, then someone with significant power is orchestrating this. I want to know who. The building's fire alarm suddenly blared. Sang-yeon checked his phone. Marcus triggered it. He's buying us time. They moved. Sang-yeon led them through the kitchen to what looked like a wine cellar. He pulled a specific bottle, a 1947 Chateau d'Yquem, and the entire back wall shifted, revealing a steel door. Beyond it, a service elevator that smelled like machine oil and concrete. The descent was silent except for the grind of cables. Sylvia's arm screamed, her body running on fumes and adrenaline. She looked at Sang-yeon, this man she'd known for less than 24 hours, who'd gone from stranger to savior to partner to fugitive. He caught her looking. Regrets? He asked quietly. About which part? Any of it. She thought about Thomas, dead in his car. About the storage unit and the photographs and the client list that was destroying lives like dominoes. About the text message she'd sent to the wrong number that had detonated her entire existence. No, she said. Not yet. The elevator opened into a parking garage that was more bunker than basement. A single vehicle waited. A nondescript gray sedan with mud-covered plates. They climbed in. Sang-yeon drove. They emerged 3 blocks away, blending into late-night traffic. Police sirens wailed in the distance, converging on the building they'd just left. Sylvia watched through the rear window as red and blue lights painted the sky. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere they won't think to look. Sang-yeon turned onto Lakeshore Drive, heading south. Elena, I need you to make a call. Tell your contacts in the cartel that we're pursuing a lead on Thomas's killer. Tell them we'll have answers in 48 hours. That's a promise you may not be able to keep. Then we'd better work fast. Elena made the call, speaking Spanish too rapid for Sylvia to follow. When she hung up, her face was grim. They're giving us 72 hours. After that, they assume we're running and put contracts on both of you. Sylvia's laugh was brittle. So we're racing against federal agents and cartel assassins. Is that all? Not quite. Elena pulled out her tablet, navigated to a news site. A headline was breaking. Federal Task Force announces major financial crimes investigation. Multiple arrests expected. Sylvia read the article. Her blood turned cold. The task force was targeting offshore tax evasion and money laundering. The lead investigator's name was prominently featured, Deputy Director James Carraway, FBI Financial Crimes Division. Carraway, she whispered. He's on Thomas's list. He paid Thomas $60,000 last year to make an audit disappear. He's also Marcus's direct supervisor, Sang-yeon said. The one Marcus claimed he was meeting with when Thomas died. An alibi provided by the man who may have ordered the hit. Elena's voice was ice. Caraway announces a task force, executes warrants, and positions himself as the hero cleaning up corruption. Meanwhile, everyone who could expose him ends up dead or discredited. Sylvia felt the pieces clicking into place. Marcus said Thomas called him 3 hours before he died. What if Thomas wasn't asking Marcus for help? What if he was warning him, telling him that Caraway was coming? And Marcus realized his supervisor was cleaning house. Sang-yeon finished. Which is why Marcus triggered the fire alarm. He's trying to keep us alive long enough to prove Caraway ordered the hit. Or he's working with Caraway and leading us into a trap. Elena's skepticism was sharp. We can't trust anyone whose name appears in Thomas's files. The sedan's headlights carved through darkness as they left the city behind, heading into industrial outskirts, where buildings crouched like sleeping beasts. Sang-yeon pulled into an abandoned warehouse complex, killed the engine. We need leverage, he said. Something Caraway wants more than he wants us dead. Sylvia held up the drive. We have his entire criminal history on here. Years of payments, transactions, communications. We could expose him. Exposure requires media, courts, due process. Caraway controls those channels. By the time we go public, we'll be arrested or dead. Sang-yeon looked at Elena. The cartels move faster than the legal system. What would they do with this information? Elena's smile was razor thin. They'd make Deputy Director Caraway an offer. Work for them, or die screaming. The cartels appreciate talented people, even corrupt ones. Especially corrupt ones. You're saying we flip him, Sylvia said. Force him to work for the cartels instead of investigating them. I'm saying we give the cartels a gift. A highly placed FBI official who's already proven he can be bought. In exchange, they clear your names and forget about the 88 million. And Caraway? Caraway spends the rest of his life doing exactly what he's been doing, just with different masters. It's more mercy than he deserves. Sylvia looked at the drive in her hand. This tiny piece of technology had killed Thomas, destroyed her life, and turned her into a fugitive. Now it was going to enslave a man who'd tried to destroy them both. There's one problem, she said slowly. Caraway doesn't know we have this evidence. He thinks it was destroyed in the storage unit. If we contact him now, he'll know we survived and come harder. So we don't contact him. Sang-yeon's voice was dark. We let the cartels make the first move. Elena arranges a meeting. Caraway thinks he's being summoned to discuss the task force investigation. Instead, he walks into a room with proof of every crime he's committed. And us, Elena added. He needs to see that you're both alive, both willing to testify, both protected by cartel interests. That's when he understands he has no choice. Sylvia's hands trembled. When? Tomorrow night. I'll arrange it. Elena's eyes were cold fire. But understand this. Once we do this, there's no going back. You'll both be in the cartel's debt. They'll own pieces of you forever. Sang-yeon looked at Sylvia. In his eyes, she saw the question. The choice. Walk away now, or step deeper into a world that would mark them both permanently. She thought about Thomas's face when he'd broken her arm, about the hospital room where she'd been left to die, about every moment she'd been powerless, voiceless, small. Set up the meeting, Sylvia said. They spent the day in the warehouse, surviving on vending machine coffee and convenience store food that Sang-yeon's driver brought in careful intervals. Elena worked her phone constantly, speaking in languages Sylvia couldn't follow, arranging pieces on a board only she could see. Sang-yeon cleaned and checked weapons with methodical focus, and Sylvia sat with the laptop, going through Thomas's files one more time, memorizing details that might keep them alive. She found something at 3 p.m. There's a discrepancy, she said, breaking the silence. Sang-yeon looked up from the disassembled handgun on the table. Where? The payment to the contract killer. The one that was supposedly sent from my email account. She turned the screen toward him. The LLC that paid for it, the one registered in my name, it was funded by a wire transfer from another shell company. That company traces back to a trust registered in the Cayman Islands. Thomas's work? No. The trust was established 6 years ago, before Thomas and I even met. Before I worked for the firm that audited your accounts. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up registration documents. The trust is owned by a holding company, and that holding company has one primary shareholder. She pulled up the name, showed them both. James Carraway. Elena's expression sharpened. Carraway set this up years ago. He was planning to frame someone long before Thomas became a liability. He was building an insurance policy, Sylvia said, her voice hollow. A way to pin his crimes on someone clean. Someone with no criminal history, no connections, no way to fight back. He just needed the right target. And Thomas delivered you to him. Sang Yun's voice was cold fury. You audited my accounts 3 years ago. You got noticed. Thomas saw an opportunity. He married you, brought you into his world, made you the perfect scapegoat. The implications crushed down on Sylvia like physical weight. Her marriage hadn't been random. It hadn't been love or even convenience. It had been a transaction. Thomas had courted her, proposed to her, built a life with her, all to make her the perfect fall guy for Carraway's crimes. I need air, she said, standing abruptly. She walked to the warehouse's loading dock, where broken pavement met weeds and industrial decay. The afternoon sun was harsh, unforgiving. She thought about every moment of her marriage, replaying scenes, looking for the truth beneath Thomas's performance. Had any of it been real? Had he ever looked at her and seen a person, or just a variable in someone else's equation? Footsteps behind her. Sang Yun's presence, careful and close. You're thinking about what was real, he said quietly. How did you know? Because I've been used before. I know what it feels like to realize someone saw you as a tool instead of a human being. He stood beside her, not touching, but there. My father recruited me into the Sangsion when I was 16. He said it was family legacy, tradition, honor. I believed him. I killed for him. I built his empire. And when he died, I found out he'd sold me to his rivals as part of a peace agreement. I was supposed to be executed the day after his funeral. Sylvia looked at him. But you're alive. I killed them first. All of them. Then I took over the syndicate and rebuilt it into something my father never imagined. Something that couldn't be traded or sold or betrayed. His eyes met hers. Thomas used you. Carraway used you. But that's over now. What matters is what you do next. I don't know what that is. Yes, you do. You've known since the moment you sent that text. You're not a victim anymore, Sylvia. You're something much more dangerous. What's that? A woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The words settled into her bones like truth. Elena appeared in the doorway. It's arranged. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Neutral location. Carraway thinks he's meeting with cartel representatives to negotiate the task force investigation. He'll bring security, but not an army. He'll want to appear cooperative. And when he sees us, Sylvia asked, that's when we show him the files. Show him we know about the trust, the LLC, the frame job. Show him that his entire career, his freedom, his life, depends on doing exactly what we say. Elena's smile was predatory. Men like Carraway understand power. Once he realizes we have more of it than he does, he'll fall in line. And if he doesn't, then the cartels will make an example of him, and the FBI will spend the next decade wondering what happened to their deputy director. Sang Yun checked his watch. We have 28 hours. We should rest. But Sylvia couldn't rest. Her mind was too loud, cycling through scenarios, variables, risks. She lay on a cot in a back office while Sang Yun took first watch, but sleep felt impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Thomas's face. Carraway's name on the screen, the trust that had been waiting for her like a trap before she even knew to be afraid. Around midnight, she gave up and went back to the main floor. Sang Yun sat at the table, the laptop open in front of him, his face illuminated by the blue glow. Can't sleep either? She asked. I'm going through the client list again, looking for connections we might have missed. Sylvia sat across from him. Find anything? Maybe. 3 of the names on Thomas's list have connections to international intelligence services. CIA, MI6, Mossad. If Carraway was working with Thomas, and Thomas was working with foreign intelligence, then this is bigger than money laundering and blackmail. This is espionage. Or counter-espionage. Or something we don't have the clearance to understand. Sang Yun closed the laptop. The deeper we dig, the more dangerous this becomes. Are you having second thoughts? About protecting you? No. About surviving this? Maybe. He looked at her, and in the dim light, his face was softer than she'd seen it. You could still walk away. Elena could arrange protection. Witness relocation. You'd disappear, but you'd be alive. Without justice, without answers, without making them pay for what they did, without being owned by the cartels for the rest of your life, he countered. That's what this deal means, Sylvia. You'll never be free of them. They'll call in favors, ask for information, use you the way Thomas used you. The difference is I'll know it's happening. I'll have power in the transaction. That's more than I had before. She held his gaze. You're not trying to protect me. You're trying to give me an exit because you think I'm too soft for this world. I think you're brilliant and brave, and you deserve better than to be consumed by someone else's war. This is my war now. Carraway made sure of that when he set up that trust 6 years ago. Thomas made sure of it when he broke my arm and left me to die. They made me a casualty before I even knew there was a battle. So no, I'm not walking away. I'm finishing this. Sang Yeon studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. All right, then we finish it together. The meeting took place in a private room at the back of a Serbian restaurant that didn't appear on any map. Sylvia walked in wearing a black dress Elena had provided, her casted arm in a silk sling that looked almost elegant. Sang-yeon moved beside her like a shadow, his suit immaculate, his face carved from stone. James Carraway was already seated. He was older than his photograph suggested, with silver hair and the kind of face that inspired trust. A face built for television interviews and congressional hearings. 2 security personnel flanked him, but they looked uncomfortable, out of their depth. Elena sat at the head of the table, hands folded. Deputy Director Carraway. Thank you for coming. Carraway's eyes moved to Sylvia, and she saw it. The flash of recognition, the calculation, then the mask slid into place. I was told this was about the task force investigation. What is she doing here? Mrs. Robinson is here to clarify some misconceptions. Elena opened a folder, slid a document across the table. This is a wire transfer authorization from an LLC registered in her name. It paid $50,000 to a contract killer 3 days before Thomas Herrera was murdered. I'm aware. That's why there's a warrant for her arrest. The LLC was funded by a trust registered in the Cayman Islands 6 years ago. The trust is owned by a holding company. Elena slid another document. A holding company whose primary shareholder is you, Deputy Director. The air in the room crystallized. Carraway didn't move, didn't speak, but his eyes went flat, and Sylvia saw the predator beneath the bureaucrat. That's fabricated, he said quietly. Is it? Sang-yeon placed the laptop on the table, turned it toward Carraway. We have 5 years of communications between you and Thomas Herrera. We have payment records, blackmail agreements, and a rather detailed account of how you've been using Thomas to eliminate obstacles to your career, including the 3 witnesses who were going to testify against you in 2021. They all died in separate accidents. Thomas arranged every one. Carraway's jaw tightened. You have nothing that would hold up in court. We're not going to court. Elena's voice was silk over steel. We're offering you a choice. You continue your career at the FBI. You advance, possibly to director within 5 years. You maintain your reputation, your pension, your life. But you work for us now. The cartels. Consider it an expansion of your existing portfolio. You've been taking money to look the other way. Now you'll take money to look in specific directions. Same work, better benefits. And if I refuse, then we give this evidence to your rivals in the organization. We let them know you've been compromised for years. We let them tear you apart in congressional hearings while the media destroys what's left of your reputation. And then, Elena smiled, cold and beautiful. We let the cartels handle what remains. Carraway's hands were flat on the table. Sylvia could see the tremor in his fingers. You're asking me to commit treason. We're asking you to survive, Sang-yeon said. The same choice you gave Mrs. Robinson when you set up that trust 6 years ago. The same choice you gave Thomas when you ordered his execution. Choose power or choose death. Silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Then Carraway looked at Sylvia. Really looked at her. You were supposed to disappear quietly. A footnote in a financial crimes case. How did you become this? Sylvia leaned forward, her voice steady. You made me this. You and Thomas and every person who thought I was too small to matter. You built a trap for someone powerless. But I'm not that person anymore. And you're going to spend the rest of your career remembering that the woman you tried to erase is the reason you'll never be free again. Caraway's face was ash. Fine. I'll do it. Elena slid a contract across the table. Sign. He did. His hand shook, but the signature was legible. When it was done, Elena collected the contract. Stood. You'll receive instructions within 48 hours. Follow them precisely. Deviation means exposure. She gestured to his security. You're free to go. Caraway stood slowly, his guards moving to flank him. At the door, he paused, looked back at Sylvia. This isn't over. Yes, Sylvia said quietly. It is. He left. The silence that followed was profound. Then Elena gathered her materials. The cartels are satisfied. Your names are cleared. The 88 million is yours to split. As agreed. Congratulations, Mrs. Robinson. You just survived something very few people do. What happens now? Sylvia asked. Now you disappear. New identities, new lives, new continent if you're smart. The cartels won't bother you, but Caraway has resources. He'll be looking for revenge, even if he can't act on it. Sang-Yeon stood, offered Sylvia his hand. Ready? She took it. Where are we going? Somewhere warm, somewhere quiet, somewhere we can decide what comes next. 6 months later, Sylvia stood on a balcony overlooking the Adriatic Sea. Her arm had healed, the cast long gone, replaced by a thin scar that wrapped around her wrist like a bracelet. She'd learned to see it as a reminder, not a wound. Sang-Yeon emerged from the villa carrying 2 glasses of wine. The transfer went through. 44 million in your account. And yours? The same. He handed her a glass. What will you do with it? Sylvia had thought about this question for months. She could invest it, grow it, build an empire. She could donate it, cleanse it of its blood origins. She could burn it and walk away clean. Instead, she said, I'm going to buy a small accounting firm. Something legitimate. Something that helps people protect themselves from predators like Thomas and Caraway. Sang-Yeon smiled. That's remarkably optimistic. Someone has to be. She looked at him. What about you? Are you going back to the syndicate? No, I've been thinking about what you said. About power without purpose. The syndicate was my father's dream, not mine. I think it's time I found my own. And what's that? He looked out at the water. I haven't decided yet, but I have time to figure it out. They stood in silence, watching the sun sink into the sea. Sylvia thought about the text message that had started everything, the wrong number that had become the right choice, the stranger who'd become something she didn't have words for yet. Do you ever regret it? Sang-Yeon asked. Everything that happened? Sylvia considered. The pain, the fear, the violence, the moment in that hospital bathroom when she'd thought she would die, the warehouse, the deals, the compromises. All of it had carved pieces away from who she used to be, but it had also built something new, something stronger. No, she said finally. I don't regret becoming someone who couldn't be erased. He raised his glass. To survival, then. To transformation, she corrected. Their glasses met, the sound clear and bright in the evening air. Power isn't given. It's taken by those brave enough to reach for it in the moment everyone else looks away. And there it is. Fam, the story of how a wrong number became the right revolution. If this story grabbed you by the throat and didn't let go. If it made you feel something real. Do me a favor. Hit that like button so hard it breaks. Subscribe because you know you want more of these dark, twisted, beautiful tales. And drop a comment telling me which moment shook you the most. Your girl works hard to bring you these stories, and your support means everything. Until next time, remember, never let anyone make you small. Stay ruthless, stay powerful, and I'll see you in the next story.